Heyo. So I wanted to, the tutorial got really long. I just wanted to quickly throw at the beginning of the video some examples of what these patches sound like, some examples of what you're going to learn without, like 3 minutes of talking. I'm already talking too much, so let's just listen to some examples. This is Swarmatron, How to Destroy Angels, Super Saw Machine, Reason Combinator, What's Good? Original track. My patch. This is my patch. Back to the original track after this. My patch. Alright, so I think they're super duper D. I think they're really close. So let's run through over what I'm about to make available for download. We got the How to Destroy Angels Big Black Boots Swarmatron lead. Jesus. Totally Reason 5.0 compatible. No rack extensions, no nothing in there. Make another combinator really quick, show off what else we can do. We have got the Swarmatron Super Saw Machine. So a comment on one of my last videos was talking. We got into this thing about stereo spreading and stereo detune, and how Thor is really a mono synthesizer. So with this combinator right here, we've got the Swarmatron that we build, and then we just turn it into a polyphonic Super Saw machine. So if I turn this knob up, it goes stereo spread. And then this is detune. Got our filter right here. So that's basically like having, where the hell is it? It's basically like having an antidote, except it's just a bunch of Thors doing the same effect. What else we got in here? We have a Swarmatron Classic. And what this basically is just a super replica of the Swarmatron, where this swarm knob is going to give us like an octave detune effect. So that's right there. And then on top of that, we just have some variations on those things, and a Swarmatron lead that has etch red as the filter, in case you're more into that. So all this is going to be available for download, and let's just, to the tutorial section. Okay, so today, going to be a little different than before, and the reason that is because I'm kind of, I don't know, it's not that different, but we do have these sweet new combinator skins for MPTutorials, and yeah, so today we are going to go over how to build a Swarmatron, Dewanatron Swarmatron, inside of Reason. It's not 100% because the combinator doesn't have enough knobs for me to do every function of the Swarmatron, and also it's very hard to find exact information about what the Swarmatron can do, and I don't own one because they are $4,000. So I'll put that on my wish list for 10 years from now. It's Swarmatron. So the Swarmatron is basically what it is an analog piece of gear made in Brooklyn, New York, by two brothers, and it's basically a huge monophonic saw wave machine with 8 analog oscillators. That's probably why it's so expensive. So basically, inside of Reason, what I've done here is I've built the Swarmatron with Thors, and then I remodeled it after Trent Reznor. That's how I found out about the Swarmatron, is because Trent Reznor, big Nine Inch Nails fan, his side band with his wife, How to Destroy Angels, uses the Swarmatron. He used it in all the film score stuff we did, like The Social Network and stuff. And in their song BBB, or Big Black Boots, they used the Swarmatron for the lead sound. And that is what I originally modeled it after. So I made a whole bunch of patches. I made the Swarmatron classically, nothing fancy, no distortion. Then I made the How to Destroy Angels version, and then I made something that the Swarmatron can't do, which is like a supersaw kind of thing. So I kind of made a supersaw machine out of 3 Thors, where we can do true stereo, detuning, stereo spread across the spectrum, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So let me get Ableton over here. I just installed Mavericks and Ableton 9 and a whole bunch of stuff. So this is what Trent Reznor's version sounds like. Let me solo. And then here would be my version of that sound. Whoops. So that's mine. This is theirs. So it's a really, really cool sounding lead. I wish I could use it myself without feeling guilty. But I mean, besides the fact they can use it like they use it, it could also be used in sort of an EDM way. Like we could be Alvin Risk or, you know, Skrillex. So it's a really, really cool sounding patch. So let's get into it. I don't know if I'm gonna copy it exactly. I don't know. We're playing it by ear. I'm winging it as always. But let's definitely go over the theory behind the Swarmatron. So I'm just gonna create a text document really quickly, so that let's lay out what we're gonna do here. So the Swarmatron, we know it has 8 oscillators that can either be saw or sine. We have a low-pass state variable filter, and we have the ability to detune the oscillators a whole bunch and get a swarming effect. So detuning via macro control, and what else do we have? I think that's pretty much it. So let's get into that. So that's our outline, and we are going to just build it because, you know, Reason is essentially a modular system, so we can really build anything we want. So we're just going to build our own little Swarmatron. So right off the bat, let's create 3 Thors, because we need 8 oscillators, and Thor has 3 oscillators maximum per thingamajig. So once we have our 3 Thors loaded up, we're going to put in analog oscillators because, you know, in the FM Thor tutorial that I did a couple weeks ago, I guess, we were using the wavetable oscillators because the wavetable oscillators are basically sample players. So every time they play back, it's going to be very very precise. We're not going to get any random artifacts or anything like that. The analog oscillators are modeled after analog hardware, so the mathematical algorithm that generates the waveforms is a little bit different every time, so we can get a lot of random variation that can kind of make the sound just sound a little bit more alive and real-world-esque. So we're going to get rid of the filter section because we're going to create another Thor later in the signal chain to handle all the filtering. We're going to run all of our audio through a separate Thor later on that's going to act as the filter. So we don't need to turn on our actual signal flow here because we are going to be using the mono outs of Thor to route out all of our audio. So really simply, we're going to plug in oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and oscillator 3. And we're going to send them out by the full amount. And we're going to send them out to, if we hit the tab key, we flip the rack around. We're going to send them out to our mono outputs here. Thor has 4 outputs. We're going to send them to 1, 2, and 3. So just scroll down, audio output 1, audio output 2, and audio output 3. So once we've done that, we have oscillator 1, 2, and 3 going through each of these separate outputs. We need to scale them by the amp envelope so that they behave normally like they would inside of Thor if we were keeping the audio inside of Thor. So we're going to scale them by 100% by the amp envelopes. So this way the amp envelope dictates how the oscillators behave coming outside of these outputs. So the next thing that we need to do to get this thing started off right is create a 14:2 mixer, and we're going to throw it up at the top here. And we're just going to route these outputs, and we're going to keep them mono into 1, 2, and 3. So let's go down here, see what this sounds like really quick. Sounds like nothing because I didn't route the mixer into the combinator. So right now our amp envelope is decay and sustained all the way up. But because the amp envelope is dictating how these oscillators behave, if we up the release here, maybe some attack. But really all our sound is right now is 3 oscillators that are quote-unquote perfectly in tune. So our mixer channels here are, clipping to all hell. So we're just going to bring it down to 70 to keep those things not in the red. Because red is bad unless it's intentional, and it certainly is not here. Bring this down to... Okay, that's fine. So at this point, we can just copy and paste these other Thors to get the same behavior. And just do the same exact thing until we have 8 oscillators coming out. So this is 6. And then over here, 7, 8. And then we can get rid of this one because we only want 8 oscillators. So once we have our 8 oscillators routing through this mixer, the next thing that we have to do, essentially, is just throw on a state variable filter on the end of it. So we hold shift to create a device that isn't routed to anything, and we're going to use Thor here because Thor has, I think it has the best stock filters in the program. The Pulverizer has some pretty great filters on it, but Thor's got the best, and it has that state variable filter. So the state variable filter is right here. So we're going to load it into filter slot 3, and we're putting it into filter slot 3 because filter slot 3 has the ability to accept stereo, incoming stereo audio. And we're going to do a lot of fancy combinator work up here to make it so that we can spread these 8 oscillators out across the stereo spectrum. So we're going to get a stereo, a big stereo spread effect, and we want that to be maintained as it goes through this state variable filter. So what I did here was I just disconnected the mixer from the input to the combinator, and I'm going to throw this this combined output of the mixer into the audio input 1 and the audio input 2 of the Thor filter. So once that's done, we need to use Thor's mod matrix to make that do anything. So we're going to take audio input 1 and audio input 2 and put it into filter 3's left in and filter 3's right in by 100. And if you ever want to read some cool stuff like that, on the back of Thor, True Stereo Synthesis, they've got that right there. But the amp envelope stuff won't apply, unfortunately, because it's incoming audio, and it doesn't work like it would if everything was contained inside of Thor, unfortunately. But no problem. Now we have the audio coming through this low-pass state variable filter, and if I take the audio output left and right, we should be good. So that's 8 oscillators going through the Thor, through the filter. And the next thing we want to do, this is just good to have, routing the filter envelope to, okay, so here's the problem here that we're going to solve. The global envelope filter doesn't retrig if the 2 notes are connecting. It kind of has like a portamento effect where the filter doesn't retrigger itself because filter 3 inside of Thor isn't polyphonic, and it doesn't work the same as filter 1 and 2, and it doesn't have the filter envelope automatically applied to it. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to route the voice key gate to the global envelope gate. So that way, if we were to do some fancy stuff like this, that way, what this little key gate message is going to do is prevent the non-retriggering of the envelope happening. This is just going to make the envelope trigger every time we want it to. So it's kind of like a silent saw thing going down right now. So the next thing that we have to do is do all the fancy combinator work to make this macro control be our detune control, or what I like to call swarm effect. Whoa, no. The swarm effect. Okay, so I think this might be the first time that we're going to be doing some fancy combinator stuff in one of my tutorials right here. But it's really fun and really cool to do this kind of stuff, so let's just hop into it real fast. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be affecting, and actually, this is actually pretty good. So let's call this first Thor oscillators 1, 2, 3. So here's what we're going to do. Basically, on the Swarmatron, every one of the oscillators is tuned a little bit different from the one before it, so that when you turn all the oscillators on, it's already got this like really heavy, thick sound to it. So our rotary one, the Swarm rotary, we are going to make that a big detune macro control. So all we got to do that is go inside of our modulation routing of the combinator, and we've got rotary 1, and we want it to affect device 3, which is oscillators 1, 2, and 3. We want it to affect oscillator 1 tune, which is just, it's this little tune knob. And the way that this modulation matrix works, right now the default value that it gave us to was -50 and 50. So if I reset this this rotary, I just drag it up and down to reset it. When the rotary 1 is at 0, our oscillator 1 tune value, our minimum, which is 0, is going to be at -50. And there it is, at -50. So now if I drag this up to 127, our max value, it's going to be at 50. And look, there it is at 50. But we don't want it at 0 to be -50. We want it at 0 to be 0. So that oscillator 1 will be our like our tonic pitch center for all the other oscillators to kind of be centered around. So we're going to set oscillator 1 to 0 and the max tuning, so that when we turn it up to 127, we can put that one to -50. Let's do the same for oscillator 2. And oscillator 3. And let's just kind of do similar values. So if we put this to like -3, and we put this one to like 2, and we put this to, I mean, these could be any values, because it's just going to be like a big, thick sound. Let's put this one to 21. So now when our swarm rotary is at 0, right now I'm just muting all the other oscillators that are on 1, 2, and 3. At 0, now we have this. Now it's got a little phasing, it's like a little thicker. And our tuning is at 0, -3, and 2. So let's slowly turn this up. So just like we wanted, it's a big detune knob. We'll call it the swarm knob. So let's just do the same exact thing with the other oscillators. And I'm gonna do like a fast forward thing right now. We're gonna cut to the next section because this is tedious, and I think you get the point from this. We're just gonna apply the same theory that we just did to the other two Thors. Okay, so assuming that you then applied the same tuning kind of theory to the rest of the oscillators, the next thing we're gonna do, because we don't have to replicate the Swarmatron 100%, is we're going to add a macro control to switch between our wave types, which is really super duper cool. So we're going to do that with rotary 3, and basically all we have to do for that is go to oscillator, oscillator 1 analog wave, and then the minimum value is 0, and the top value is 3. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, which is 4 values. So this is going to be wave type. So when rotary 3 is at 0, it's going to be a saw wave. And when it's at 127, it's going to be a sine wave. But any value in between there, we can make it a square wave, probably about right over there. I only did it for oscillator 1 so far. But look, oscillator 1 is now in a square wave, and we can do this for all the oscillators. So if I go over to my finished patch over here, if I switch this to like over there, all the oscillators are now square waves, and yeah, basically it's simple as that. So the next thing that we can do is create that true stereo detune effect, because we have 8 oscillators running through this mixer, and each mixer channel has a pan knob. We can apply the same exact combinator theory and create rotary 2, rotary 2. We're going to do rotary 2 8 times. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. And then we're going to do pan, pan. Why do I keep messing it up? Pan. And we're going to do that over and over and over again. And if we go look at the finished patch again, when the stereo width is at 0, our mixer channel knobs are all dead center. And when I pump it up to 127, they're each panned at slightly different amounts to fill the whole stereo image and get this huge wide sound. So if I switch to my my finished patch here, the Swarmatron Super Saw, this is dead mono, and that's all stereo, a little detune. So that's where all that stuff comes in. So I'm going to load up my finished How to Destroy Angels patch here and just go over the distortion really quickly. And also I'm going to go over this this white noise effect that's happening here. So basically in the original song, if I bring this over here, in the original track, you hear that? There's like that super duper high, and it's above 10 kilohertz of that like like it sounds incredibly stupid when I do it, but that's happening above 10 kilohertz, and it's really super duper easy to create that kind of effect. So all we got to do here in our third Thor, we have all 8 oscillators running through this this big filter thing. We're gonna add this white noise here and run the white noise through this low pass louder filter and make sure that the self oscillation is off. With the self oscillation off, we have the resonance all the way up. The filter frequency cutoff at like 8.42, and then this filter envelope at 42, and the envelope at just 761. And the amp envelope, which is going to be controlling the noise oscillator, also at 1 second. So if I turn off the rest of the oscillators right here, and I go to this combinator patch, so see if you can hear that going on in the original really quick. So then we've created that like high-end stuff. To throw on top of the rest of our lead. So in the original song, it's it's definitely like a separate instrument, but just for the sake of making it like kind of sound the same as the example, I threw it in to make it one instrument. And then we can run over the distortion really quickly. The distortion is an overdrive on the first box. It's a serial distortion, one after the other. The first one's an overdrive, kind of like a guitar amp effect. It's going to chop away some of the lows, and then it's just getting gently pushed through some tube stuff to give it a little bit of that warmth back again. And that is the end of the patch right there. There's also some mod envelope stuff, so that the mod envelope is hitting the pitch wheel, so we get a little pitch bend every time the note is triggered. You see that pitch bend. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So all this stuff is available for download. If you have any questions about what's going on here, especially the stereo detune stuff, let me know.